£92,000. That was the biggest fine for an estate agency branch regarding a lack of anti-money laundering checks. And to go alongside this, 250 estate agencies have been fined a total of £1.6 million for breaching these requirements. Sam, these are some pretty big numbers we're dealing with here. Should estate agents be worried?
Well, no, if they're doing things correctly, but yes, if they're not, is the very simple answer.
And is it a case that you're either on the correct side of the line or you're not? Where does the line sit with compliance? Because I'm going to be brutally honest here. It's not something I stay on top of these days. Now I've left the estate agency world sort of front line. I look from a distance, and it seems to me like the net is getting tighter and tighter on the money laundering side with regard to the AML checks. Do you
Yeah.
think that's fair?
Yes, I think it's fair, but I think HMRC are very fair in the sense of they do give very good and clear guidelines. So as long as you're actually taking the time to read those guidelines, doing it is not a problem. But it's the agents making the effort to do it properly, and plus it's such a time-consuming element, which I totally respect.
So the bit there is that I'm going to kind of pick up on is that it's okay if you read the regulations. Now, I'm sure if
Mhm.
we had 100 estate agents in the room and said, right, who's read the regulations with regard to what you should do for putting a property on the market and all this sort of stuff, the bar would be fairly low. Don't think I'm throwing estate agents under the bus there too much.
No,
So
that's fair. Yeah.
would you say that's the experience across the board?
I would say that, yeah, not a lot of people do, which is fair enough because it is a big document. The main thing is if the company is paid for the anti-money laundering training. That is absolutely crucial and so important.
So I'd imagine it's a lot of historical training in the estate agency world. So, with regard to people aren't reading compliance today, for example, if that's even a thing.
Mhm.
Instead, they're just going, I've done this for the last 5 years. I've always done it this way. I've always just got a vendor's picture on my phone that I forward onto my email account, add to the CRM system. I've not been investigated so far, so I can't be doing anything too wrong. I'd imagine that's probably the lot of the situations with estate agency businesses, rather than people actually proactively going to the compliance and going, this has changed in the last 5 years, or this has changed 2 years ago, sort of thing, and I need to change my process because. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair. I think, if you want me to give you an example, that the guidelines are always changing. A few weeks ago, HMRC released how PEPs need to be addressed in agents' business risk assessments, which means every agent should have gone away and changed their risk assessment to the wording to reflect the changes. Now, you tell me, is it realistic that an estate agent's read this, put it to the top of their priority list, and actioned it? Probably not. So in that sort of case, you always still need to stay in check and keep an eye out for any changes because obviously with HMRC audit, they're going to ask for that risk assessment.
And is that when those audits take place? I mean, I've very luckily, I should say, never been on the receiving end of an audit, and I'm going to talk about that a
Yeah,
little bit later on in today's podcast. But I'm presuming the guys literally come into your office and go, give us the file on that property, give us the file on that property, and have a checklist where they go, you should have for this person X, Y, and Z. Is that the case?
yeah, there's a checklist. So they won't necessarily walk in. That is very, very rare. They will give you a 14-day notice period. Say, listen, we're coming in. They won't tell you what properties they're going to case, because otherwise you're going to be scrambling around like chickens, making sure you are compliant on those ones. They're going to pick some at random, and yeah, an audit can take. We've had an agent, and it took over 5 hours. So it is a very long process,
Wow.
and not a nice one, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't imagine that being the most exciting 5 hours of your life, but any way, stretch or form.
No. Yeah, a very squeaky bum time, I imagine, for those agents that have been through one.
Yeah, and so, well, I think it's very nice to give you 14 days notice. I'm sure lots of estate agents get that phone call or email or however it comes through and think, right, press that big red panic button, phone all their vendors and go, oh, by the way, I forgot to get your ID. By the way, you're going to get a phone call from
Yeah,
Sam.
yeah, that's the yeah. It's normally done by letter, and yes, so it's a quick panic. What have we got in place? And then they try to sort something out. And some agents are absolutely fine, but then some agents, they haven't touched it like you said for the last 10 years. It's completely wrong. They don't even know who the money laundering officer is in branch when someone needs to be appointed for that. So yeah, it's just very basic things that agents can do to protect themselves.
So, with that in mind, then, so what are some of the most common compliance issues you see with estate agencies?
Well, also, I can only speak for what I speak to about my agents and what I've seen whilst at Smart Compliance. But the main one for me is estate agents not doing the AML check at the correct time. A lot of estate agents do it at some point after they've listed the property or when an offer's been accepted for the vendor. That's not the case. For an AML check for a vendor, you need to do it before you've even put the property live. If you don't, that's an automatic HMRC fail. So
So,
that's the most common one because I get it. I was an agent for 10 years. You've got the okay from the vendor. You want to go out, do the photos, do a stunning advert, and post it. Very exciting. The last thing you're thinking about is doing an AML check. But unfortunately, you do need to do the AML check first before you put that property live.
yeah, I was going to say, do you think the competitive world of estate agency sort of leans against that somewhat? Because everyone wants to get their figures in, get it on the board, get it in for this month. Oh, I've listed that house. Yeah, I've sold it already. All that sort of stuff. You don't,
Yeah.
not many people go, "Wow, hang on, guys, here. Let's wait for the AML checks to come back, and then we can get on the market." It's more of a bish bash bosh, get it done, get it on the market, get it sold sort of vibe. Do you think that kind of pulls in the opposite direction to what you guys are trying to do?
Yeah, well, remember, it's not us, it's HMRC that have said that. It's whenever, as soon as you enter a business agreement with a client, an AML check needs to be done. But what we do at Smart Compliance, we try to work with our agents to implement it into their onboarding structure with a client. So normally, you have that tick list of when a property comes live of, have you got their details? Have we got the photo? Have we done the floor plan? Have we arranged the viewing time? Have we done an EPC? On that needs to be, have we submitted an AML check? So it's just putting it in that normal structure.
And what are the challenges that estate agents face in that situation then? Is it a case that just not remembering to do it? Is it not having it as a priority? Is it the chasing and waiting for it to come back? What are the challenges that estate agents face in the compliance world?
Personally, I just think it's them not understanding when it needs to be done because once you know it needs to be done before the property is put live, you know that. But a lot of agents don't. So it's just the educating point of view of right, as soon as you've got that okay from the vendor, you need to submit an AML check. So it's not really an issue because if you have got someone doing AML in branch, then fine, you can pass it over. Or, if you're partnered with someone like Smart Compliance, you just send us the lead and we do it all for you whilst you're doing your marketing. So depending on the setup, it's not a problem. It only becomes a problem if you're doing it at the wrong time.
So let's talk through that timescale then. So give me the ideal situation. You can give a shameless pitch for smart compliance here. I think you guys do a brilliant job on a side note, so I'll get the pitch in there nice and early. So you walk out the front door from a vendor and they say, "Great, love to go on the market with yourself, Sam. Great, get us all signed up and we'll get the board out next Tuesday," sort of thing. At what
Yeah.
point should they be approaching you guys or approaching the vendor directly to go, right, let's get the money laundering checked? And how long does it take to actually come back? Does it slow the process down, or if it's done the correct time, is it still okay? Where are we sitting?
Yeah, so to give you sort of a script, if you like, say to your vendor, right, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, legally I've got to get you an EPC, legally I've got to do an AML check, they're upfront costs. A member of my anti-money laundering team will give you a call to go through the next steps. When you get that back to branch, you then upload that lead to Smart Compliance. And then whilst you're doing your marketing, your photo, your floor plan, your brochure, and all that jazz, in the background, we will be working to get that AML check through as a pass. So when that vendor's ready to come to market and the property is ready to go live, you will have your AML pack in place. Turnaround time is probably about 2.5 days average, can be quicker. I know for buyers, sorry, it's about 24 hours are back with the agent the same day. So yeah, it's not meant to slow things down, but the good news with Smart Compliance is that we will do all of the enhanced due diligence. So regardless if there's a failed ID, PEPs, financial sanctions, probate, trust, whatever it might be, we will take all that work from the agent. So we do it.
Yes, I think so. As long as you're prepared and advanced in some degree, and even by a couple of days, sort of thing, then it shouldn't really slow you down too much.
No, it shouldn't do. No, no, not at all. As long as you've got that structure in place and that vendor is happy, it shouldn't slow anyone's procedure down.
But I'm a big fan of a process and a structure, hence why I do the job I do.
Of
And
course, yeah,
with the clients I work with, we literally list the process from start to finish through from sort of, first day of sort of getting inside the front door to get it on the market, right there through to
yeah.
handing over keys sort of thing. And certainly, things like compliance, if there's a box to tick sort of thing for that property coming on the market, great. If that's early on the process, there shouldn't be any delays on that side. So that's really good. I like that a lot sort of things. That's really, really good.
And then, some CRMs have like a tick box because they understand the importance of compliance. That they won't. It doesn't send the property live until the AML tick box is complete because they know you're not being compliant. So yeah, there are some CRMs that are really, striving forward to help agents with that structure.
Yeah, I think that, well, I don't know your experience on this, but I generally have found historically that generally the bigger the estate agency is, the bigger the target is for the HMRC to target. So I know when I worked at
Mm.
Countrywide a long time ago, they were
Yeah.
very sharp on AML because obviously they were at the time the biggest estate agency brand in the UK. So therefore had the biggest target on their back. So that I know when I was working at there, it was AML ground into you, and you certainly could not put a project on the market anywhere near the market until AML was completely checked, completely signed off.
Yeah, well, it is, that's a fair point. But, the most expensive one we've seen, you said at the beginning, over £92,000, that was just for a single branch. A
Ouch.
single, yeah, that's life changing. So yeah, they're scary numbers, but the good news is that there are suppliers that can take away all of that risk.
So, if estate agents want to stay ahead on the compliance work, because you mentioned that the regulations are changing, not on a regular
Yeah,
basis, but they do change from time to
the
time.
guidelines, yeah, 100%.
How does an agent stay ahead of that? Because I'm guessing there isn't a compliance newsletter, or is there a compliance newsletter? How do agents stay ahead of the curve?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, obviously they will get their own internal updates. If they're part of any companies or any larger organisations, they will get automatic updates of this is changing, this is what you need to do. Or just literally partner with Smart Compliance. It is for free. We will keep you ahead all the time because we will update things for your business on your behalf. So yeah, it's literally like I said at the beginning, having a plan in place to tackle AML.
And so you've led me up, you've teed me up a butte there, Sam. So, Smart
Mm.
Compliance is free. So it's free
It
for
is,
an
yes,
estate
yeah.
agent to use you guys. So
Yes, yeah. Well, we will supply you with the risk assessment. We'll supply you with a compliance policy template. We'll supply you with the marketing so you can actually give something to your clients, talk about AML. We'll do the AML check, all the enhanced due diligence. We will put our HMRC guarantee on it. We will obviously include mover protection so you can financially cover your clients if the sale was to fall through and it wasn't their fault. Yeah, loads of benefits. And yes, it's completely free.
So you charge the vendor for that, I would imagine. You charge them what, like a charge for doing the AML check for them with that sort of stuff behind it.
Yeah, that's it. So we charge £40 including VAT, and that's not per person. So if you've got Mr. and Mrs., it's still only £40. If it's probate, then it's still only £40 regardless if there's loads of people on there. But I can let you into this. The majority of our agents are charging £60. So they're actually getting a kickback for every single AML lead that's done.
Ah, sneak.
So it can become a revenue stream.
Okay, I didn't want to ask that, but that's pretty clever on that side of things. And so you've got that situation there. So obviously you find out the vendors, you charge them directly, and that's kind of free from the agent side, or maybe even cash positive from the agent side. Let's
Yeah,
say
but so
it,
I'll also mention as well that we also include obviously the proof of ownership to be AML compliant. We also give the agent the land register details. So even if you're not chart or making any money from the AML check, you will at least be saving money regardless.
yeah, perfect. And let's say it all went a bit Pete Tong, should we say? Let's say, for example, you got your phone call, or I got the phone call from the HMRC saying, Mr. Webb, we're going to come and check your estate agency business, and they picked up one of the smart compliance properties and it failed, for example. Would that be a Sam
That'll be
problem?
covered. No, that would be actually covered by us. So before I answer that question, I will just say we do over 450 AML checks a day, and HMRC has never found an error with any of our packs. So just extra peace of mind for the client. But if one day they ever do, you've got our HMRC guarantee, so we will pay that fine for you
Blimey.
because it's our fault.
Yeah, well, that's fair, isn't it? I think that there's two parts to this, right? It's a couple of parts to this actually. There's the monetary aspect of it, which obviously it being free for your business, or maybe even cash positive, even if it is a relatively small amount in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
There's the time aspect of it, the fact that you don't have to do the AMO checks yourself, so therefore you don't have to worry about people dusting off their passports from underneath their bed and find a bill from whatever else it might be. And also
yeah,
there's the element of having the security and the backing of you guys to go, actually, if it did ever go wrong, so you've got kind of that peace of mind aspect that you can sleep at night and go, actually, if I got the phone call from the HMRC, no big deal. Might be a bit of a boring day, but apart from that, it's going to be
yeah.
covered.
But you cover it. And keep in mind as well, it's a very nice process for your clients because we're not just tech. We do have a team of 75 AML experts at head office in Reading. So whether you, the agent, or your client actually wants to speak to a real person at any point, they can do. So yeah, we're the only one that mixes that tech with real people because you can't really do AML without the real person element.
Good. And so, obviously, most important part of the podcast, Sam, how are you settling into compliance life? Because obviously, most people know you from your days
Agents
over at
together.
Agents Together, whereas now you're in the compliance world. So, how have you found the transition?
Absolutely loving it, 100%. As we've previously spoken, I've always had a very keen interest in compliance because of my dad. So I've, tried to follow in his footsteps because I think growing up, I've heard him talk about compliance all the time. So I think naturally I was going to come to it at some point. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, still involved with agents together, still, supporting the charity move forward and try to help agents as much as we can. So yeah, I've got a good mixture of both worlds.
And it seems like you've got a really good team at Smart Compliance. I always get the vibe. Obviously, I see a lot of stuff from Amy. Obviously, I know Emma's joined the team as well. So I see a lot of stuff on social media of everyone kind of getting on really well. It seems like a really good place to work.
The team is epic. Yeah, so we've obviously got our team, which is led by Amy, who's just amazing. Everyone is so supportive. If there's an issue, we can all jump on the call and it's resolved very quickly. There's lots of banter. The hard work is done. The team at head office, they are just absolutely amazing. The amount of questions, and like I said, they do over 450 ML checks a day. That takes a certain type of strong team to complete that, especially to HMRC guidelines. I think that's just outstanding. And then, yeah, as you've seen, we're taking on new people as well. So, it's an expanding team, which is very exciting to be a part of.
Sam, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really good, mate. Thank you so much for coming
No,
on.
thank you for having me.
You've survived, mate. You've done well.
Done it. That's it. Job
You,
done.
you've made compliance sexy for 20 minutes. I mean, you can't say better than that. So
I hope so. I hope so.
amazing, mate. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Take care.
Cheers, buddy.